If I told you that grace is suffering, you wouldn't believe me. And I'm not here to get you to believe me, but hear me out. You've heard of a blessing in disguise, and that's referring to something that's considered to be unfortunate. Then in hindsight, you see that that which was experienced as something unfortunate was actually something that was positive or good for you. It's typically how we use that saying, it was a blessing in disguise. Now, what if suffering is like that? It's too radical for the mind to understand or grasp. But what if the experiences in your life that feel like they're a complete disaster, that feel like a complete loss, that seem to break you down, that appear to be severe threats? When everything feels like it's just crumbling, like there's no way out. What if those experiences are actually an opportunity to realize your true nature? What if it's an opportunity to give you everything that you've ever wanted? That it seems too paradoxical that when you feel like you're losing everything, what if it takes losing everything to actually gain everything? What if it takes losing yourself to find yourself? What if it takes breaking down to break through? What if it takes having your heart broken to experience love? What if it takes losing your mind to find sanity? What if it takes being completely confused to have crystal clarity? What if everything was completely opposite to how you think about it? I'm sure you've experienced this blessing in disguise, that at the moment of experiencing what may feel like losing your job, or a business going bankrupt, or being divorced, or something of that nature. I'm sure that you can look back at that experience and see that actually that experience was a blessing in disguise, that there is actually the most amount of growth, or that was some pivotal point in your life. Where actually everything changed. But at the time of experiencing it, if someone told you that this is a blessing, you look at them and it would almost feel like they're saying the most cruel thing to you. It would sound like the most uncompassionate thing that you could say. So there's these challenges that are actually opportunities in our life. These challenges that may be like finding out that you have cancer, or a severe health issue. But what if it takes that for you to realize that you are not your body? What if it takes some sort of severe mental illness for you to realize that you are not your mind? What if it takes having your heart broken for you to realize that you are love itself? What if these challenges are actually opportunities to go beyond who you think you are? So what appears to be suffering is actually grace, but that's only seen in hindsight. But just hearing this, what if you could be open to that idea? What if you can be open to it the same way you can look back on some hard times in your life and see that they're a blessing in disguise? See how you can look back and now you may have that wisdom to then be open to facing these hard times now a little differently. This is where we can go through the challenges of life and start seeing them as opportunities, that we become open to opportunities instead of closed to the challenges. That the challenges don't close us because we are experiencing opportunities that open us. That we're not getting wounded by the challenges, but instead we're becoming wiser from the opportunities. What if there's a graceful way to suffer? Typically, when we say that there's suffering, we stir up this image of a fight, a battle. You're fighting cancer. You're battling mental illness. It's always this struggle, this war, this fight, which is resistance. And it definitely doesn't feel graceful. So what is the graceful way to suffer? Surrender. Surrendering to your suffering, which means you're no longer fighting it, which means you're no longer resisting it. That it's actually when you surrender to your suffering, you find the grace in that suffering. And it's the grace that experientially lifts you out of that suffering. You transcend suffering through grace. But that grace is found in the suffering. And you only find that grace through surrender, that then you see in retrospect that the grace was disguised as suffering. That there was surrender via grace. And you come to realize that what you truly are is that grace. And that this theme of your life, or this disaster, detrimental experience, this obstacle, this big challenge, whatever it is that you're facing, whatever it is that you're suffering from, you see how it was needed. That it was needed. That it was intelligently planned in such a creative way that it was needed in order for you to let go of who you think you are. To discover what you truly are. In a weird way, looking back, you see how genius it was that these circumstances, these obstacles, these challenges were presented in some sort of theme for your life. That provided the perfect opportunity for you to realize the truth. And just like the experience of a blessing in disguise, that typically when we look back in retrospect and say, yeah, when my business went bankrupt, that was actually a blessing in disguise. Or when I went through that breakup, that was a blessing in disguise, or whatever it is. When we look back at it and are looking from that new perspective, in a weird way, we look back and we can say, it was worth it. In a weird way, we say, I would do that again. So like that, consider that to be the case with the suffering that you are experiencing. Then what if it's just this opportunity? What if the suffering is an invitation for you to go beyond yourself? What if the suffering is actually grace? What if you come to realize that you are grace? And it's only grace that frees you from the suffering. And in order for there to be freedom from that suffering, you have to go through it. What if the only way out of suffering is in? What if fighting the suffering is really running from it? And what if surrendering to it is going into it? What if in a weird way this is exactly what you needed? What if grace is suffering and suffering is grace? What if they aren't separate? See you in the next one.